My name is Simone Richardson, and I'm 48 years old. I never thought I'd be standing in my own living room, looking at my sister-in-law and my daughter, listening to them tell me I had 3 days to get out of my house, but that's exactly where I was last Tuesday afternoon. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. Simone, baby, you're out by Friday, Candace said, standing in my foyer with this huge grin on her face. My daughter Destiny stood right next to her, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a stranger she'd never met before. We had the house signed into my name, all legal and everything. I remember that moment so clearly. The afternoon sun was coming through the window behind them, and I could hear Mrs. Patterson's wind chimes from next door. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching a movie instead of living my actual life. I just smiled at them. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just smiled and said, "You really think I'd let that happen?" Candace's grin got even wider. "It already happened, sis. You should have paid more attention to what you were signing. Destiny's been very helpful." My daughter wouldn't even look me in the eye. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story and subscribe to the channel to help us hit that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. Now, to understand how we got to that moment, I need to take you back 2 years. Back to when my grandmother Loretta passed away, just 6 months after my grandfather James. They'd been married for 53 years, and when Granddaddy died, Grandma just seemed to fade away like a flower without water. They left me everything, not because I was special or perfect, but because I was the one who'd been there. I was the one who drove Granddaddy to his doctor appointments when his eyes got too bad to drive. I was the one who sat with Grandma every Sunday after church, listening to her tell the same stories about growing up in Mississippi that I'd heard 100 times before. I was the one who made sure they had groceries, that their bills got paid, that they weren't alone. My brother Terrell, Candace's husband, lived 30 minutes away and visited maybe twice a year. Usually on Christmas and sometimes on Easter if his golf schedule allowed it. My daughter Destiny was in college then, too busy with her sorority and her new boyfriend to visit her great-grandparents more than once or twice. But I was there, not because I wanted something from them, but because I loved them. Because they'd raised me when my mama was too deep in her addiction to be a mother. Because they'd given me a home when I had nowhere else to go. So when they passed and left me their house, their savings, their investments, everything totaling about $900,000, I wasn't surprised. I was grateful and heartbroken all at once. The will reading was at Marcus Webb's office downtown. Marcus had been my grandparents' lawyer for 20 years, and he'd watched me grow up. He was a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes, the kind of black man who wore bow ties and kept butterscotch candies in a dish on his desk. "Simone," he said after reading the will to my family, "your grandparents were very clear about their wishes. But I want to advise you about something." We were sitting in his office, just the two of us. Everyone else had left. Terrell had stormed out, furious that he'd only gotten $5,000. Candace had followed him, throwing me looks that could kill. Destiny had hugged me and said congratulations, but even then I could see something calculating in her eyes. "What is it, Mr. Marcus?" I asked. "Your family is upset right now. Grief and money make people do things they wouldn't normally do. I've seen it 1,000 times in my 40 years practicing law. He leaned forward, his hands folded on his desk. I strongly suggest you put the main assets into a trust. The house especially. Make yourself the trustee and beneficiary. But protect it legally. That way, nobody can manipulate you into signing anything away, even if you're going through a hard time or someone tricks you. I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Okay, let's do it. That fast? He seemed surprised. Mr. Marcus, you've known me since I was 16 years old. Have I ever made a decision without thinking it through? He smiled then. No, Simone, you haven't. That's why I'm glad you're listening to me now. We set up the trust within 2 weeks. The house, the investment accounts, everything of significant value went into the Loretta and James Richardson Family Trust. I was the trustee. I was the beneficiary, and nobody could touch it without my explicit permission and proper legal documentation. I didn't tell anyone about the trust, not Terrell, not Candace, not even Destiny. I just lived my life, grieved my grandparents, and tried to move forward. The house was beautiful, a 2-story colonial in a quiet neighborhood with big oak trees and friendly neighbors. My grandparents had bought it in 1975 for $30,000, and now it was worth almost $500,000. They'd taken care of it like it was made of gold. Every room had memories painted on the walls. I moved in and made it my own. I kept Grandma's china cabinet and Granddaddy's record collection. I repainted the guest room and turned Grandma's sewing room into my home office. I was working as a school administrator, and having a quiet place to work at home was a blessing. For about 6 months, everything was peaceful. Then Terrell lost his job. He worked in sales for a pharmaceutical company, and he'd been making good money. But the company downsized, and suddenly he was out of work. Candace called me maybe 3 days after it happened. "Simone, we need to talk," she said. Her voice was tight, stressed. "What's going on?" "Terrell lost his job. We're behind on our mortgage. The kids need school supplies and clothes. We're struggling, Simone." I felt bad for them. I really did. Terrell was my brother, even if we weren't close. "How much do you need?" "Could you loan us $10,000 just until Terrell finds something new?" $10,000. It was a lot of money, but I had it. The trust was generating income from the investments, and I had my own salary. "Okay," I said, "but I need you to sign a loan agreement. I'll give you a low interest rate, and you can pay me back over time." There was silence on the phone. Then Candace said, "A loan agreement? Simone, we're family." "I know, and because we're family, I want to make sure everything is clear and fair. Mr. Marcus can draw it up for us." She agreed, but I could hear the irritation in her voice. Marcus drew up the paperwork, they signed it, and I transferred the money. They made 2 payments of $500 each, then the payments stopped. When I asked about it, Candace said they were still struggling and needed more time. I let it go. Family is family, right? Then Destiny graduated from college and moved back home. She'd been living in Atlanta, working at a marketing firm, but she said she wanted to be closer to family. She moved into my guest room, promising it would just be for a few months while she saved money for her own place. Those few months turned into a year. At first, it was nice having her around. We'd watch movies together, cook Sunday dinner, talk about her job and her life. But slowly, things started to change. She started bringing her boyfriend around. His name was DeAndre, and I didn't like him from the start. He had this way of looking around my house like he was appraising everything, counting what it was worth. "Your daughter's got a nice setup here," he said to me one evening while Destiny was in the shower. We were sitting in the living room, and he was lounging on my couch like he owned the place. "Must be nice to inherit all this." "I'm blessed," I said simply. "Must be worth a lot. This neighborhood, this house." He nodded slowly. "Your daughter says it's all yours now." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. It is. You ever think about selling, moving somewhere smaller? Could pocket a lot of cash. "No," I said. "This was my grandparents' house. It's staying in the family." He just smiled at me. Of course, family's important. After that conversation, I started noticing things. Destiny asking casual questions about the house paperwork. Where did I keep the deed? Did I have a will? What would happen to the house if something happened to me? She'd ask these questions while we were cooking or watching TV, like they were no big deal. I started keeping the important documents in a safe deposit box at the bank. Something in my gut told me to be careful. Then, about 6 months ago, Candace started coming around more often. She'd drop by on Saturday mornings with coffee, wanting to chat. She'd bring Destiny with her, and the two of them would sit at my kitchen table, talking about family and memories and how much they appreciated me. It felt nice at first. I'd been feeling lonely since my grandparents passed, and having family around seemed good, but then the conversations started shifting. "You know, Simone," Candace said one morning, "this house is really too big for just you. 4 bedrooms for one person seems like a waste." "I like the space." I said, "but think about it. You could sell this place, buy something smaller, and use the extra money to help out family. Terrell's still looking for work. Destiny's trying to save for her own place. We could all benefit. The house isn't for sale." "I'm not saying sell it to strangers," she said quickly. "But what if you sold it to family? Terrell and I could buy it from you at a fair price. You'd still get your money, and the house would stay in the family. Win-win." I looked at her carefully. "Candace, you told me 6 months ago that you couldn't pay back the $10,000 I loaned you. How would you buy this house?" She waved her hand dismissively. "We'd figure it out. Maybe you could hold the mortgage. We'd pay you monthly." "No," I said. "The house isn't for sale." Her smile tightened. "You're being selfish, Simone. Your grandparents would want you to help family." "My grandparents left me this house because they wanted me to have it. I'm respecting their wishes." She left shortly after that, and I didn't see her for a few weeks. But Destiny stayed, and I started noticing that she was getting mail from law firms. She'd grab it quickly from the mailbox and take it straight to her room. Once, I saw an envelope on the counter with property transfer services printed on the return address. I asked her about it casually. "You thinking about buying property?" "Just researching," she said, "for the future." 3 months ago, things escalated. Candace came over with a stack of papers. Destiny was home too, and they cornered me at the kitchen table. "Simone, we need you to sign these," Candace said, spreading papers across the table. "What are they?" "Just some family trust documents. Marcus Webb's office sent them over. It's routine paperwork for the estate. making sure everything's properly documented. I picked up the papers and started reading. They looked official, with legal language and signatures required. But something felt wrong. I need to have my lawyer look at these first. Your lawyer? Marcus Webb was your grandparents' lawyer. This came from his office. Then I'll call him and confirm. Candace's face went hard. Simone, why are you being difficult? This is routine. You're holding up important family business. If it's routine, it can wait until I confirm it with Marcus. Destiny spoke up then. Mom, we're just trying to help you. These papers protect you. They make sure everything's in order. Then waiting a few days won't hurt. They left angry. I called Marcus the next morning. He told me he hadn't sent any papers and had no idea what they were talking about. When I described the documents, he went quiet. Simone, don't sign anything without showing it to me first. Can you bring those papers to my office? I went through Destiny's room that evening while she was at work. I know it was wrong, but my instincts were screaming at me. In her closet, in a box under her winter clothes, I found copies of property transfer documents, notary stamps, and a whole folder of research about transferring property out of trusts. My hands were shaking when I called Marcus. We have a problem. He had me come in the next day. I brought everything I'd found. He looked through it all, his face getting more and more serious. Simone, they're planning to forge your signature on property transfer documents. These papers they tried to get you to sign would have started the process of removing the house from the trust. Once they had your signature on those initial documents, they could have manipulated the rest. But the house is in a trust. I thought that protected it. It does. But if they can get you to sign paperwork that appears to authorize changes to the trust, they could potentially create a legal mess that would take months to untangle. Even if they ultimately lost, they could tie up the property and cause you serious problems. He paused. I think your daughter and sister-in-law are working together on this. My heart broke right there in his office. What do I do? First, we secure everything. I'm going to file additional protective documentation. Second, you need to remove your daughter from your home. I know that's hard, but she's actively plotting against you. She's my daughter. I know, but she's not acting like your daughter right now. She's acting like a thief. I went home that day feeling like someone had died. That night, I told Destiny she needed to move out within 30 days. She acted shocked and hurt, crying about how I was abandoning her. But I stood firm. She moved in with Candace and Terrell 2 weeks later. For a month, things were quiet. Too quiet. I knew something was coming, but I didn't know what. Then last Tuesday, Candace showed up at my door with Destiny, both of them grinning like they'd won the lottery. And that's when Candace told me I had to be out by Friday, that they'd had the house signed into her name. I smiled at them because I knew something they didn't know. The trust had protected me. Whatever documents they'd forged, whatever scheme they'd put together, it couldn't touch the legal structure Marcus and I had built. You should start packing, Candace said, looking around my living room like she was already planning how to redecorate. We've been very patient with you, but Friday is Friday. I'm not going anywhere, I said calmly. Destiny finally spoke. Mom, we have the paperwork. We have everything signed and notarized. We even filed it with the county. The house is in Candace's name now. Is that right? I pulled out my phone and called Marcus. Mr. Marcus, can you come over? My family has something interesting to tell you. Candace's smile faltered a little. What are you doing? Calling my lawyer, the real one. Marcus Webb is your lawyer, she said. Yes, he is, and he's going to be very interested in seeing this paperwork you supposedly have. Candace's face went pale. You know what? We can talk about this later. Come on, Destiny. They left quickly, but not before Candace turned at the door and said, You have until Friday, Simone. We'll be back with movers. After they left, I sat down on my couch and let myself cry. Not because I was scared of losing my house. I knew the trust protected me. I cried because my daughter had chosen money over me, because my family had turned into strangers who wanted to steal from me. Marcus came over that evening with his associate, a sharp young black woman named Janelle Carter, who specialized in fraud cases. They looked at the documents Candace had left behind in her rush to leave. She'd dropped a folder on the foyer table. These are completely fraudulent, Janelle said, flipping through them. The signatures are forged. The notary stamps are fake. They've filed fraudulent documents with the county recorder's office, which is a crime. What do we do? I asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. We let them dig themselves deeper. They said they're coming back Friday with movers. That's what she said. Good, let them come. Janelle and I will be here. We'll have everything documented and ready. We'll have the police here too, just in case. He smiled then, a smile that reminded me why people respected him so much. Simone, trust me when I say this. By the time Friday afternoon rolls around, your sister-in-law and daughter are going to regret ever trying to steal from you. Friday came. I barely slept Thursday night, my mind racing through everything that had happened. I kept thinking about Destiny as a little girl, how she'd curl up next to me on the couch and fall asleep during movies, how she'd held my hand at my grandparents' funeral and told me everything would be okay. Where had that girl gone? Friday morning, I got up early and made myself look presentable. I wore a simple navy dress and my grandmother's pearl earrings. If I was going to face my family, I was going to do it with dignity. Marcus and Janelle arrived at 10. 2 police officers came at 11. Marcus had arranged for them to be present in case things got confrontational. We all waited. At noon, I heard the sound of a large truck pulling up outside. Through the window, I could see a moving van parking in front of my house. Candace's car pulled up behind it, and she and Destiny got out. They're here, I said quietly. Marcus stood up and straightened his bow tie. Remember, stay calm. Let me do the talking. I watched through the window as Candace walked up to the porch. Destiny right behind her. 2 movers stood by the truck, looking uncertain. Candace had this triumphant look on her face as she reached for my doorbell. But before she could ring it, I opened the door. The look on her face when she saw Marcus standing behind me in his suit, Janelle next to him with her briefcase, and 2 uniformed police officers in my living room. I'll never forget that look. It was like watching someone's whole world crumble in real time. Destiny's eyes went wide. Mom, what? Good afternoon, Candace. Destiny. Marcus stepped forward, holding a thick manila folder. I believe you ladies have some fraudulent documents you'd like to discuss? Candace's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Marcus opened the folder. Then perhaps you can explain these property transfer documents filed with the county recorder's office, the ones with Simone's forged signature, the ones with the fake notary stamps. He pulled out paper after paper, showing them. Would you like to explain these to the police officers here? Because filing false documents is a felony. Attempting to steal property through fraud is a felony. Forgery is a felony. One of the police officers stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step inside so we can have a conversation. That's when Candace tried to run. Candace didn't get far. She made it maybe 3 steps off the porch before one of the officers, a tall brother named Officer Jenkins, caught up with her. Ma'am, running isn't going to help your situation. She spun around, and I could see the panic in her eyes. This is all a misunderstanding. Simone, tell them this is just a family dispute. I stood there on my porch, feeling like I was watching a stranger. This woman had sat at my kitchen table. She'd eaten my food. She'd hugged me at my grandparents' funeral and told me we'd get through it together. And all that time, she'd been planning to rob me. The only misunderstanding, Marcus said calmly, is that you thought you could commit fraud and get away with it. Destiny was crying now, mascara running down her face. Mom, please, tell them we didn't mean it. Tell them we were just trying to help. Help? The word came out harder than I intended. You were trying to help by stealing my house? It's not stealing. Destiny's voice went high and desperate. Grandma and Granddaddy would have wanted us to share. You're being selfish, keeping everything for yourself. Marcus held up his hand. Officers, I think we need to have this conversation at the station. The next few hours were a blur. Candace and Destiny were taken to the police station for questioning. The movers, realizing they'd been caught up in something illegal, gave statements and left quickly. Marcus, Janelle, and I followed to the station in Marcus's car. How are you holding up? Janelle asked from the front seat, turning to look at me. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to take it all back, tell them it's okay, that we can forget this happened. But I know I can't do that. No, you can't, Marcus said firmly. What they did was criminal, Simone. If you let them walk away from this, they'll just try again, or they'll do it to someone else. At the station, we met with Detective Morrison, a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She'd been investigating fraud cases for 20 years. And she looked at our evidence with practiced efficiency. This is pretty cut and dry, she said after reviewing everything. Forged signatures, fake notary seals, fraudulent filing with the county. The question is whether you want to press charges, Ms. Richardson. I looked at Marcus. He nodded. It's your decision, Simone. I thought about Destiny as a little girl, about Candace at family barbecues, laughing and dancing to old-school music, about Terrell, my brother, who would be devastated when he found out what his wife had done. But then I thought about how they'd smiled at me when they told me to get out by Friday, how they'd been willing to make me homeless, how they'd forged my name and plotted for months to steal from me. Yes, I said, I want to press charges. Detective Morrison nodded. I'll need you to give a full statement. The statement took 2 hours. I told her everything. The loan that never got repaid, the suspicious questions, finding the documents in Destiny's room, the fake paperwork they'd tried to get me to sign. Janelle sat next to me the whole time, occasionally adding legal context. When we finally left the station, it was dark outside. Marcus drove me home, and Janelle followed in her own car. "They'll be arraigned on Monday," Marcus said as we pulled up to my house. "The district attorney is taking this seriously because they actually filed the fraudulent documents. That shows intent and premeditation." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you go inside, lock your doors, and try to rest. Janelle and I will handle the legal side. You just take care of yourself." But rest didn't come easy. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. My phone kept buzzing with texts and calls. Terrell had found out what happened, and he was blowing up my phone. "How could you do this to your own family?" his voicemail said. "They made a mistake, Simone. You didn't have to involve the police. You're tearing this family apart." I deleted the message without responding. The next morning, Saturday, my doorbell rang at 8. I looked through the peephole and saw Mrs. Patterson from next door. She was 72, a retired teacher who'd been my grandparents' friend for 30 years. "Simone, baby, I saw what happened yesterday," she said when I opened the door. She was holding a covered dish. "I made you some breakfast casserole. Can I come in?" I let her in, grateful for a friendly face. We sat at the kitchen table, and she poured us both coffee from my pot. "Your grandmother would be proud of you," she said quietly. "Would she? I just had my own daughter arrested." "You protected what was yours, what Loretta and James worked their whole lives for." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I know this hurts, but sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. That's how they learn." "What if she never forgives me?" "Then that's on her, not you. You didn't do anything wrong, baby. They did." Mrs. Patterson stayed for an hour, and her presence helped more than she knew. After she left, I tried to do normal things: laundry, cleaning, paying bills, but my mind kept drifting. Sunday, I went to church. Second Baptist had been my grandparents' church for 40 years, and it was mine now too. I sat in the back, hoping to slip in and out without much attention, but Pastor Williams saw me after the service. "Sister Simone," he said, his deep voice warm. "Can we talk in my office?" Pastor Williams was in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of wisdom that comes from years of counseling people through their worst moments. His office was lined with books and pictures of church members. "I heard about what happened," he said once we were seated. "How are you doing?" "I don't know, Pastor. I feel like I did the right thing, but it doesn't feel right. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." He leaned back in his chair. "Doing the right thing often hurts. That's what makes it hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it." "My brother thinks I'm destroying the family." "Your family tried to destroy you first. They just didn't succeed." He was quiet for a moment. "Simone, I've known you since you were a teenager. I watched your grandparents raise you. I know the kind of person you are. You're not vindictive. You're not cruel. You're protecting yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what do I do now?" "You keep living. You keep your head up. You let the legal system do its job, and you surround yourself with people who love you for who you are, not what you have." He smiled. "And you know this church family has your back." I cried then, right there in his office. He handed me tissues and let me cry until I was empty. Monday morning, Marcus called. They were arraigned this morning. Candace made bail. Destiny's still in custody. Her bail was set higher because of the evidence we have showing she was the primary planner. What happens next? There'll be a preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. The DA will present evidence, and the judge will decide if there's enough for a trial. Given what we have, I'm confident it'll go to trial. Will I have to testify? Eventually, yes, but not at the preliminary hearing. That's just the DA and the defense attorneys. I went to work that day, my job as a school administrator at Lincoln Middle School. I'd taken Friday off, but I couldn't hide forever. My assistant principal, Keisha Williams, the pastor's daughter, stopped by my office mid-morning. "Girl, are you okay?" she asked, closing the door behind her. My dad told me what happened. Keisha and I had been friends for years. She was one of those people who could make you laugh even when you wanted to cry. "I'm hanging in there," I said. "Hanging in there? Simone, your family tried to steal your house. You're allowed to be not okay." "I know. I just don't want to think about it. I need to focus on work, on something normal." She sat down across from my desk. "Have you eaten today?" "I had coffee." "That's not food. Come on, we're going to lunch. My treat. And you're going to tell me everything." Over lunch at a little soul food place downtown, I told her the whole story. She listened without interrupting, her eyes getting wider and wider. "See, this is why I don't trust people," she said when I finished. "Your own daughter? That's cold-blooded." I keep trying to understand why. Was I a bad mother? Did I not give her enough? "Girl, stop. You were a great mother. I remember when she was little. You were at every school event, every dance recital. You sacrificed for that child. This isn't about you. This is about her being greedy and choosing the wrong people to listen to." "You think Candace manipulated her?" "Probably. Candace has always been about money. Remember when she tried to get the church to invest in her cousin's pyramid scheme? I'd forgotten about that. That was 10 years ago. Exactly. She's been showing you who she is. You just loved her too much to see it." The next week crawled by. I went to work, came home, avoided phone calls from Terrell. He kept calling, kept leaving messages about how I was ruining lives, how I needed to drop the charges, how family should forgive family. On Thursday, something unexpected happened. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Richardson, this is attorney Brenda Matthews. I represent your daughter, Destiny." My heart sank. "Okay. She'd like to speak with you. Would you be willing to visit her?" "I don't know if that's a good idea. She says she has something important to tell you, something about Candace that you need to know. I talked to Marcus before making any decision." "It could be a trick," he warned. "They might be trying to get you to say something they can use against you. Or she might actually want to tell me something. If you go, I'm going with you, and we record everything." The jail was a depressing concrete building downtown. Marcus and I went through security, and they led us to a visiting room with thick glass separating us from the inmates. After a few minutes, they brought Destiny in. She looked terrible. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her orange jumpsuit hung on her like she'd lost weight. When she saw me, she started crying immediately. She picked up the phone on her side of the glass. I picked up mine. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I didn't say anything. I just waited. "I know you hate me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need to tell you something about Candace, about all of this." "I'm listening." She took a shaky breath. It wasn't just about the house. Candace has been planning this for over a year. She's the one who convinced DeAndre to date me. She paid him to get close to me, to turn me against you. My blood went cold. What? DeAndre worked for Candace's company. She told him if he could get me to help her take the house, she'd give him $20,000. He made me think the idea was mine, that we were protecting family assets, that you were being selfish, but it was all her plan. Marcus was taking notes next to me. There's more, Destiny continued. Candace has done this before. Her first husband, the one before Uncle Terrell, she stole his mother's property using the same scheme. That's how she got the money to start her business. She got away with it because the old lady had dementia and couldn't testify. I felt sick. Does Terrell know? No. She told me if I ever told him, she'd ruin me. But I'm already ruined, Mom. I'm in jail. I lost everything. And I deserve it because I chose her over you. She was sobbing now. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know the truth. And I want you to stop her before she does this to someone else. Marcus leaned over. Ask her if she has proof. I asked. Destiny nodded. I have emails, text messages, everything. I saved it all on a cloud account because I was scared of her. My lawyer has access to it. I already told her I want to cooperate with the DA. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I had 3 days in here to think. 3 days to remember who you really are. You never asked for any of this, Mom. You just loved your grandparents and took care of them. You deserved everything they left you. And I threw you away for money I was never going to see anyway. She pressed her hand against the glass. I know I'm going to prison. I know I destroyed our relationship. But maybe I can at least make sure Candace doesn't get away with it. The visit ended shortly after. Marcus and I sat in his car in the jail parking lot, both of us quiet. This changes everything, he finally said. If Destiny cooperates and provides evidence of Candace's past fraud, the DA can file additional charges. We might be able to help other victims. What about Destiny? If she cooperates, testifies, and shows genuine remorse, the judge might be lenient. She might get probation instead of prison time. He looked at me. Is that what you want? I want my daughter back, I said quietly, but I also want her to face consequences and learn from this. I don't know how to balance those things. You don't have to decide today. Think about it. Pray about it. Talk to Pastor Williams. That night, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea, looking at old photo albums. Pictures of Destiny as a baby, as a little girl, as a teenager. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost her, or maybe she'd lost herself. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Simone? It was Terrell. Don't hang up, he said quickly. Please, I need to talk to you. What do you want, Terrell? I need to see you, in person, tomorrow. There's something you need to know about Candace. Something bad. Destiny already told me. No, this is something else, something worse. His voice was shaking. Please, Simone, I'm at a hotel. Candace doesn't know I'm calling you. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I looked at the clock. It was 9 at night. Where? The Marriott downtown, room 412. 10 o'clock tomorrow? I'll bring my lawyer. I expected that. Just come, please. I hung up and immediately called Marcus. We might have another problem. The next morning, Friday, exactly 1 week after the confrontation, Marcus and I walked into the Marriott. We took the elevator to the 4th floor and knocked on room 412. Terrell opened the door, and I barely recognized him. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week. His eyes were red, his face unshaven, his clothes wrinkled. "Thank you for coming," he said, letting us in. The hotel room was a mess, papers everywhere, a laptop open on the bed, empty coffee cups on every surface. "What's going on, Terrell?" I asked. He sat down heavily on the bed. "I've been going through Candace's files, her computer, her phone, everything." He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. "She's been lying to me for 15 years about everything." He handed me a folder. Inside were bank statements, emails, property records. As I read through them, the picture became clear and horrifying. Candace had been running real estate scams for years. She'd befriend elderly people, gain their trust, and then manipulate their family members into signing over property. She'd done it at least 6 times that Terrell had found evidence of. The money she'd used to start her business was stolen. The house they lived in was stolen. Everything was built on fraud. "I confronted her last night," Terrell said. "She admitted all of it. She said she did it for us, for our family. She actually seemed proud of herself." He ran his hands over his face. "I told her I was going to the police. She said if I did, she'd destroy me too. That she had evidence I was involved, that she'd make sure I went down with her." "Were you involved?" Marcus asked. "No, God, no. I didn't know about any of this. I thought we were just living beyond our means, that she was good at business. I'm an idiot." "What do you want from us?" I asked. "I want to help. I want to give this evidence to the DA. I want to testify against her. And I want to apologize to you, Simone. I said terrible things to you this past week. I called you vindictive and cruel, but you were just protecting yourself from a predator." He stood up and walked over to me. "Our parents would be ashamed of what we did to you, what I let happen." I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and I saw the little boy I grew up with. The one who used to protect me from bullies at school. The one who walked me to church every Sunday when we were kids. "We need to take this to Detective Morrison immediately," Marcus said, gathering the papers. We went straight to the police station. Detective Morrison called in the DA, and they spent hours going through everything Terrell had brought. By late afternoon, new charges had been filed against Candace, multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and racketeering. "This is a much bigger case than we thought," the DA, a sharp brother named Kenneth Foster, told us. "We're talking about victims across 3 counties, stolen property worth over $2 million. Mrs. Richardson, you might have just blown open one of the biggest fraud rings in the state." When we left the station, it was dark again. Marcus drove me home, and we sat in his car outside my house for a few minutes. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Exhausted, sad, angry, relieved, everything at once. That's normal. You've been through a trauma." "When does it stop hurting?" "Eventually, but healing isn't linear. Some days will be better than others." He smiled at me. "But you did good, Simone. You stood up for yourself, and in doing so, you might have saved other people from being victimized." I went inside and took a long shower, washing away a week's worth of stress and heartache. When I got out, I saw I had a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is destiny. I heard Uncle Terrell turned over evidence. Thank you for not giving up on our family, even when we gave up on you. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry for everything. I sat on my bed, holding my phone, crying for the 100th time that week. But these tears felt different, like maybe, just maybe, something was starting to heal. My phone rang. It was Keisha. "Girl, you need to get out of that house," she said without preamble. "There's a praise and worship night at church tonight. Pastor's been praying for you all week, and half the congregation wants to hug you. Come on, let your church family love on you." I started to say no, but then I thought about Mrs. Patterson's words, about surrounding myself with people who loved me for who I was. "Okay," I said, "I'll be there in 30 minutes. At church, I was surrounded by people who'd known me and my grandparents for years. Sister Margaret, who used to teach Sunday school. Brother Johnson, who sang in the choir with Granddaddy. The Thompson family, who'd lived next door to my grandparents in the 70s. They hugged me, prayed over me, told me they were proud of me. And for the first time in a week, I felt like maybe I was going to be okay. But as I was leaving the church around 9 that night, my phone rang. It was Detective Morrison. "Ms. Richardson, I need you to come to the station immediately." "What's wrong?" "It's Candace. She's been arrested trying to leave the country, and she's claiming you and Marcus conspired to frame her. She's filing countercharges for defamation, harassment, and conspiracy." She paused, "and she says she has proof." I drove to the police station with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Countercharges. Candace was actually trying to flip this on me. Part of me wanted to laugh at the audacity. The other part wanted to scream. Marcus met me in the parking lot. "I got the call too. Don't worry, this is a desperate move." "She's cornered and lashing out." Detective Morrison met us in an interview room. She looked tired but not concerned. "Ms. Richardson, Candace's attorney is claiming that you and Mr. Webb manufactured evidence against her. She says the documents you provided were falsified to make her look guilty." "That's insane," I said. "We have the original fraudulent documents she filed with the county." "I know, and we verified everything. But her lawyer is making noise, and we need to address it. She's also claiming you manipulated Destiny and Terrell into turning against her." Marcus pulled out his briefcase. "Let me guess, she has absolutely no proof of any of this?" "Actually, she has a recording." Detective Morrison slid her phone across the table and pressed play. I heard my own voice. "I want her to pay for what she did. I want her to lose everything." Then Marcus's voice. "We can make that happen. We can build a case that destroys her." My stomach dropped. That conversation never happened." "It's edited," Marcus said immediately. "That's AI or spliced together from other conversations." "We know," Detective Morrison said, stopping the recording. "Our tech team already analyzed it. It's a deepfake. She used clips from actual conversations and manipulated them with software. It's actually pretty sophisticated." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now we add another charge to her list, tampering with evidence and attempting to obstruct justice. Judge Harrison is not going to be happy about this." She smiled slightly. "Ms. Richardson, you're fine. This actually makes our case stronger because it shows consciousness of guilt. Innocent people don't manufacture fake evidence." We left the station, and Marcus walked me to my car. Get some rest. The preliminary hearing is Monday. After this stunt, I expect the judge to deny her bail entirely. That weekend was the longest of my life. I stayed home mostly, trying to prepare myself for Monday. Mrs. Patterson came over Saturday with more food and sat with me while we watched old movies. Keisha stopped by Sunday after church with half the choir, and they prayed over my house and filled my kitchen with enough food to feed an army. "You need to eat, sis," Sister Margaret said, putting containers in my refrigerator. "Can't fight the devil on an empty stomach." Monday morning came too fast. I put on a burgundy suit my grandmother had bought me years ago. It felt right to wear something of hers, like she was with me. Marcus picked me up at 8, and we drove to the courthouse downtown. The courthouse was beautiful but intimidating, all marble columns and serious-faced people in suits. Marcus guided me through security and to the courtroom on the 3rd floor. "Remember," he said as we waited outside, "you don't have to say anything today. This is just the preliminary hearing. The DA presents evidence, Candace's lawyer argues against it, and the judge decides if there's enough for a trial." "Will she be here?" "Yes, she has to be." The courtroom doors opened, and we walked in. It was smaller than I expected, with wooden benches and a raised platform where the judge would sit. The DA, Kenneth Foster, was already there with his team. And on the other side, I saw her. Candace sat at the defense table with her lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. She was wearing a cream-colored dress and pearls, looking like she was going to brunch instead of court. When she saw me, her face hardened. But what shocked me was seeing Destiny walk in with Terrell. They sat on the prosecution side, behind the DA's table. Destiny looked at me, and I could see the fear and hope mixed in her eyes. "All rise," the bailiff called. "The Honorable Judge Patricia Harrison presiding." Judge Harrison was a black woman in her 60s with gray locks and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked at everyone in the courtroom like she could read their souls. "Be seated," she said, her voice carrying authority. "We're here for the preliminary hearing in the matter of the state versus Candace Richardson. Mr. Foster, you may present your case." For the next hour, the DA laid out everything. He showed the fraudulent property transfer documents. He played a video of Candace at the county recorder's office filing the fake paperwork. He presented the notary stamps that were proven fake. He showed emails between Candace and DeAndre discussing payment for turning the daughter. Then he brought out the evidence Terrell had provided, the 6 other cases of fraud spanning 15 years. Each one was detailed, documented, proven. "Your Honor," Kenneth Foster said, "this isn't just a case of one woman trying to steal one house. This is a pattern of predatory behavior targeting vulnerable families and elderly individuals. The defendant has stolen over $2 million in property through fraud and manipulation." Candace's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence." The documents in question were signed willingly by Ms. Richardson. There was no fraud, only a family dispute about property inheritance. As for the other allegations, they're completely fabricated by family members who've turned against my client. "Is that so?" Judge Harrison looked at him over her reading glasses. "Mr. Peterson, does your client have any explanation for the forensic evidence showing the notary stamps were fake?" or the digital trail showing she purchased notary stamp-making equipment online. Mr. Peterson hesitated. We believe that evidence was planted. By whom? A 50-year-old school administrator with no criminal history. The judge's voice was dry. Try again. Your Honor, we have evidence that Ms. Richardson and her attorney conspired to frame my client. He pulled out a flash drive. We have a recording, the deepfake recording, Judge Harrison interrupted. The one your client manufactured using AI software? Yes, we're aware of it, and I'm adding it to the list of charges against her. She looked at Candace directly. Mrs. Richardson, stand up. Candace stood, and I could see her hands shaking. You came into my courtroom and tried to present fabricated evidence. You attempted to obstruct justice and frame innocent people. I've been a judge for 23 years, and I've seen a lot of things, but your audacity is truly remarkable. She picked up her gavel. I'm denying bail. You'll remain in custody until trial, and given the overwhelming evidence presented today, I'm ordering this case to proceed to trial within 60 days. She banged the gavel. Candace's face went white, and she grabbed the table to steady herself. But Your Honor, Mr. Peterson started, we're done here, Counselor. Your client is a flight risk. She was literally arrested at the airport, trying to leave the country. She's staying put. Judge Harrison looked at the DA. Mr. Foster, I want a comprehensive investigation into all of Mrs. Richardson's business dealings. If there are more victims, I want them found, and I want justice for them. Yes, Your Honor. As they led Candace away in handcuffs, she looked at me, not with anger or hatred, but with something like disbelief, like she couldn't understand how her plan had fallen apart so completely. Outside the courtroom, Destiny approached me cautiously. Mom, can we talk? I looked at Marcus. He nodded. I'll give you some privacy. Destiny and I walked to a quiet corner of the courthouse hallway. She looked so different from the confident young woman who'd stood in my foyer 2 weeks ago, smiling while telling me I had to leave my house. The DA wants me to testify at the trial, she said quietly. My lawyer says if I cooperate fully, I might get probation, community service, no prison time. And what do you want? I asked. I want to make this right. I want to tell the truth about everything Candace did, how she manipulated me, how she paid DeAndre to use me. I want to help put her away so she can't do this to anyone else. She took a shaky breath. But more than that, I want you to know how sorry I am. I can't take back what I did. I can't undo the pain I caused. But I can try to be better. Do you understand what you did, Destiny? Really understand? I chose money over you. I chose greed over love. I let someone twist me into a person I don't even recognize. Tears were streaming down her face. You were there for me my whole life. When Dad left, you worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. When I wanted to go to college, you took out loans you're still paying off. You gave me everything, and I tried to steal the one thing your grandparents left you. I felt my own tears starting. I loved you more than anything in this world. Loved? Past tense? I was quiet for a long moment. I still love you. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if our relationship can ever be what it was. But you're still my daughter. That doesn't just go away. She sobbed then, full body shaking sobs. I don't deserve your love. I don't deserve another chance. Maybe not. But that's the thing about love. It's not about deserving. It's about choosing. I reached out and touched her face, wiping away her tears like I used to when she was little. You need to face the consequences of what you did. You need to do the work to become better. And I need time to heal. But maybe, eventually, we can find our way back to each other. I'll do whatever it takes, Mom. I promise. Terrell walked over then. Simone, can I talk to you too? The three of us sat on a bench in the hallway. Terrell looked broken, like someone had taken everything he thought was real and shattered it. I filed for divorce this morning, he said. I can't stay married to someone who's been lying to me for our entire marriage. Everything we built was stolen from other people. I can't live with that. I'm sorry, Terrell. Don't be. You saved me. If you hadn't stood up to her, if you hadn't protected yourself, I might have gone my whole life not knowing who I was married to. She would have kept using me, kept using our family name to hurt people. He looked at me with red eyes. Can you forgive me for the things I said to you, for not believing you? We're family, I said simply. Family forgives. Marcus came back over. Simone, the DA wants to talk to you about something. We went to Kenneth Foster's office. He was there with Detective Morrison and another woman I didn't recognize. Ms. Richardson, this is Angela Chen from the Victims Assistance Unit, Kenneth said. We've identified 7 other families that Candace defrauded. Thanks to your case and the evidence Terrell provided, we're able to help them recover some of what was stolen. 2 of them want to meet you. Meet me? You were the first person to stand up to her, the first person to fight back, instead of letting her get away with it. They want to thank you. The next day, I met with the Johnsons and the Martinez family. Both had lost property to Candace through similar schemes. Mrs. Johnson was 84 and cried when she hugged me. I thought I was crazy, she said. Everyone told me I probably just forgot signing the papers. But I knew I didn't. I knew something was wrong. You weren't crazy, I told her. You were right. Meeting them made everything worth it. Yes, I'd lost time with my daughter. Yes, my family was fractured. Yes, I'd been hurt. But I'd also stopped a predator from hurting more people. The trial came 6 weeks later. It lasted 3 days. Destiny testified about Candace's manipulation. Terrell testified about the evidence he'd found. I testified about the forgery and the attempted theft. The other victims testified about their experiences. Candace's lawyer tried to paint her as a struggling businesswoman who'd made some mistakes, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. We find the defendant guilty on all counts. Candace was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She'd be eligible for parole in 10, but with her record, parole seemed unlikely. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction. I just felt tired and sad. Sad for what could have been if she'd chosen differently. Sad for Terrell and his kids. Sad for all the broken trust and shattered relationships. But I also felt something else. Peace. 3 months after the trial, I stood in my kitchen making Sunday dinner. The kitchen smelled like Grandma's mac and cheese recipe. Extra sharp cheddar, just the way she taught me. The house was filled with voices and laughter. Mrs. Patterson was setting the table. Pastor Williams and Keisha were in the living room debating about music. Terrell was helping me with the greens, and his kids were playing in the backyard where I could see them through the window. And Destiny was next to me, carefully stirring the pot of green beans like I'd taught her when she was small. She was still working on her recovery, therapy twice a week, community service on Saturdays, rebuilding her life piece by piece. We talked on the phone every day, but she only came over once a week for Sunday dinner. We were taking it slow, rebuilding trust one day at a time. "Mom, are the beans supposed to be this soft?" she asked. "Just a little softer. Grandma always said if the beans have any crunch, you didn't cook them long enough." She smiled. I remember her saying that. We were quiet for a moment, working side by side in comfortable silence. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not giving up on me, for letting me try to earn my way back. You're my daughter. I could never give up on you, but you're doing the work, and that matters." The doorbell rang, and Marcus came in with Janelle. They'd become friends of mine over the past months, stopping by for dinner sometimes, checking in on me. "Sister Simone, something smells good," Marcus called out. We all sat around the table, family, friends, neighbors, church members, the people who'd held me up when I was falling. The people who'd reminded me who I was when I was losing myself. As we held hands to say grace, I looked around the table. This was what my grandparents had wanted. Not just for me to have the house or the money, but for me to have peace, family, love, and the strength to protect what mattered. Pastor Williams blessed the food, and as everyone started passing dishes and talking and laughing, I felt Grandma's presence like she was standing right behind me, her hand on my shoulder. "You did good, baby girl," I could almost hear her whisper. "You stood up for yourself. You protected our family. You chose love even when it hurt. That's what strength looks like." Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the kitchen was clean, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea. The neighborhood was quiet except for Mrs. Patterson's wind chimes and the sound of crickets. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Destiny. "Thank you for today. I love you, Mom. I'm going to keep being better. I promise." I texted back, "I love you too, one day at a time." I looked up at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the pain, the legal battles, the slow healing. It had been the hardest 5 months of my life. But I'd survived. More than survived, I'd protected myself, helped others, and started rebuilding what was broken. The house behind me stood solid and safe, protected by the trust my grandparents had left and the boundaries I'd learned to set. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof that I could stand up for myself, that I could say no to people I loved when they tried to hurt me, that I could be both strong and loving at the same time. I thought about Candace in prison, about the choices she'd made that had led her there. I didn't hate her. I felt sorry for her. She'd had opportunities to stop, to be honest, to choose differently, but she'd kept choosing greed and manipulation until there was nowhere left to go but behind bars. And I thought about Destiny, working so hard to become someone she could be proud of. We had a long road ahead of us, but we were walking it together. That was enough for now. My phone rang. It was Mrs. Johnson, the elderly woman Candace had defrauded. "Simone, dear, I hope I'm not calling too late." "Not at all, Mrs. Johnson. Is everything okay?" "More than okay. I got a letter today from the DA's office. They recovered my property after 3 years. I'm getting my mother's house back." She was crying happy tears. "And it's because you were brave enough to fight. Thank you, baby. Thank you for saving an old woman's legacy." After we hung up, I sat there crying too. Not sad tears, but tears of relief and gratitude. This was why it had all been worth it. I finished my tea and went inside, locking the door behind me. The house was quiet and peaceful. I walked through the rooms, touching Grandma's china cabinet, running my fingers over Granddaddy's record collection, looking at the family photos on the walls. "Thank you," I whispered to my grandparents. "Thank you for protecting me, even from beyond. Thank you for teaching me to be strong. Thank you for this." I went upstairs to bed, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night without nightmares, without fear, without doubt. I was home. I was safe. I was free. And that was everything. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.